Aloha, friends. Welcome to Persons of Presence, where it's our mission to benefit our community by helping one another realize the unique lifestyle of our dreams. We do so by illuminating supportive questions, practices, and behaviors which uncover one's most authentic self and highest potential. I'm Zach Nomadic, and I'm so grateful to be here. A little while ago, following many misguided attempts at true happiness, I decided to turn within for a very intentional investigation of self. Through this long and discomforting period of introspection, I was fortunate enough to reveal and align personally fulfilling passions with previously hidden deeper purpose. This alignment of purpose and passions and mindful presence led to the shaping of my dream life. It wasn't long before I began recognizing the signs of others who had found their own divine alignment. And this is when the idea hit me. What if we began a public dialogue discussing the events which made an alignment with our highest self possible? Could we identify a replicable equation for others to follow? The journey since has been nothing short of incredible and brings us to the present, the release of our very first episode. Our inaugural guest is Erik Guru Lieux, who I had the pleasure of meeting 5 months ago at a very magical place, the Hostel in the Forest. Erik has his master's in psychology, although he's come to apply this education in a less than traditional way. His exploration of shamanic practices, plant medicines, and most importantly, the exploration of oneself has opened him up to a lifestyle of passion, compassion, and conscious influence. Without further ado, please enjoy our premiere episode of Persons of Presence. Thank you.
Erik, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, thanks for having me, Zach. I'm doing fantastic. It's another day in paradise here in South Florida, which I call home. So, thanks for having me as the initial inaugural guest for the show here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I'm sure it's going to be everybody else's as well. So... so let's jump into it. To my knowledge, you do a few things, and one being a videographer. You're also involved with ecstatic dance and cacao ceremonies, correct?
Yeah, so there's an interesting blend of, the question of when someone approaches you at a gathering, what is it that you do? I try to simplify, but there's a few different skill sets I've developed over the years. Photography and videography has probably been the longest running skill set. I have my degree in mental health and wellness. I received the master's from Nova, Southeastern University down here in South Florida. And then also along the journey started a beverage line, a plant-powered superfood, super herb line called Shamanic Tonic. And in addition to that, out of that also sprung facilitating cacao ceremonies. These are chocolate ceremonies, which we can talk a little bit more about. And those really pair well with ecstatic movement practice too. So there's a few really beautiful offerings. I've probably approached the purpose of life, which we'll get into more as a Renaissance type of approach. So the question of what is it that you do, it's like I really embrace that multifaceted creative aspect to life and doing a little bit of everything, really.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm familiar with that approach on life and have equal, let's call it, challenge answering that question whenever it comes up in such a casual setting. So,
right.
So we're talking about mental health. Sounds like nutrition in a sense, a little bit of spiritual. Is there an underlying theme that you think aligns these different avenues of work that you're providing?
Yeah, I really feel that there is. As far as the theme goes, what a life theme is, I actually had the pleasure of having a discourse for for just about 30 minutes or so with a really well-known, nationally acclaimed psychic years ago named Sylvia Brown. And she was on the Montel Williams show. She had helped close police cases that had gone unsolved for years, and somehow ended up speaking with her for a while, had a really interesting discussion with her. And one of the things she mentioned during that session was I had a few different life themes, one of which was humanitarian. And I really do resonate with that particular theme, and have, since I was young, always wanting to really share and just help people like we all need, just extend a hand in whatever way and say, hey, come on, like, this might be a better path, or maybe we can both get here together faster if we both go this direction.
Definitely.
So I would say probably just helping people, and regardless of what the form looks like.
Awesome. So you said that's been a inherent desire, I guess, something that you've always kind of felt. Can you think of any times early on in life where that really manifested into a practice that you started putting work behind so you could better help your community?
Well, a practice, I would say, probably started at a very young age in kindergarten, I would say, as far back as then. And this is kind of some of the cosmic aspects of self that I like to dive into. I also have a beautiful meditation practice of over 20 years.
Awesome.
That's a daily practice for me. Completely rewired the circuitry of my brain, my nervous system. So that's a very, very important facet of what I do for myself and my self-care. But I remember as a child really just waking up one day and was feeling the infinite expanse of the universe, just really connecting. As a child, this is a natural state. I really do feel that children are so much like sponges. They just receive everything.
Yep.
They're super open, super clear channels they're still connected to their souls. And somewhere along the line that gets a little funky, and then we have to do shows like this to kind of remind people, like, hey, remember, you're so much more than what you've been led to believe.
Yep.
But I woke up this one day in kindergarten and just feeling the expanse of everything. I remember it very lucidly. And I grabbed a sticky pad and a pencil, and in the back of my mom's Mercedes on the way to school, I remember asking her the question right when we got in the back of the car. I remember asking, how do you spell the word infinity? And so she told me, and I wrote it on a sticky pad and copied it as many times as I could on as many sticky pads as I could before I got to school. So I got to school that morning. I saw one of my best friends at the time, don't remember his name, but he was coloring, and I ran up to him really excited, really enthusiastic, and I handed him one of the sticky notes that said the word infinity on it. I said, this is what the universe is. And he paused. I remember his face even. He paused and looked at me and then went right back to coloring. And I'm like, oh shit, he doesn't get it.
Yeah.
So, it was interesting. It was an interesting experience. I remember running up to a little girl. She was playing with some toys, and I remember saying the same thing. This is what the universe is. And she just was, oh, well, my dolly here. And like,
yeah,
like what's going on? So at a very young age, I had this deep, very real intention of sharing something greater than what people were immersed in.
Yeah.
And I think that's just continued in so many various ways throughout the years. Yeah.
So it's interesting that you had such a, well, first of all, such a profound moment at such an early age that you can remember to that degree in detail. I'm interested to hear about times that maybe you have forgotten about that. You've forgotten about the infinite expansiveness and, fallen back into the grooves that we kind of get drawn by, the people around us and society.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely been such a journey and return back because of the societal programming and the indoctrination one receives in schooling. So there is a learning process that is bestowed upon us, but in that process, the way that the mechanics of school works, there's also a forgetting, because it doesn't address what is consciousness. It doesn't address self-reflection. It doesn't, there's like a lot of facets and pieces that are just left out of the equation. So for me, the forgetting was all throughout adolescence. There was such an angst and such a why do I feel so different? Why is there like this strange, this self-reflectivity that I seem to go so deeply into reality in, and it wasn't making sense to me being in a world that wasn't there.
Yeah,
that was just didn't acknowledge this sort of reality. So for me, it was very difficult to kind of balance between knowing my essence and being true and authentic to that, and fitting in and being part of the greater whole and the greater construct. So I'd say that teenage years were really tough for me. There was a lot of dark periods, which is normal, I think, because we're going through all these, sorry about that.
No
we're
worries.
Going through we're going through all these changes. We're going through all these, these really interesting changes on a physical level. There's hormones. There's all sorts of really strange. This is puberty. It's kind of like, and I still feel, as I'm getting this camera adjusted, I still feel that society and the collective consciousness is still kind of in this prepubescent state. There's still this weirdness out there, and now, based on my own life, I think that's really like a time to start guiding people into a blossoming, into a maturation of some of these states and feelings that they're discovering. So I would say, it was definitely a bit of a remembering at a young age, and then a forgetting. Yeah. And kind of coming back to that through different practices and books and techniques and all this. Yeah.
That's probably why I felt such a connection with you early on, even before we really spoke. But because of our mutual desire in furthering, the collective consciousness. And one of the things that I've taken note of many times over the years is the best lessons seem to be the ones that we have to learn over and over and over again. And it's the really simple things, but just recognizing stuff like looking internally whenever we're feeling that anxiety and whatnot, rather than looking at external factors to try to further us. Like, it all begins inside, and it's easy to forget that whenever there's a very result-driven world around us,
right?
Carried by the possessions that we own rather than, the other way around. So,
well, yeah, and that's kind of there's a whole nother approach now, which is saying that you can manifest. This word manifestation keeps popping up more and more. Where if you change your internal states, if you start to work with some of your internal states, naturally you don't have to burn your candle to the and extinguish your light to that point. By chasing things outwards, you can just change some of your internal state, and then there's more of a flow that you can step into while still being productive, by still stepping up into your life. It's not a passive thing. It can be. There needs to be recharge time, but yeah, just working on some of those internal states can sometimes get you exactly the life that you're looking for, or the type of surroundings that you're looking for. It just takes breaking some bad habits and instilling some new ones.
Definitely. Now, for anybody that may not be as aware of stuff like ecstatic dance or the ceremonies or even shamanic tonic, could we touch into the... There you go. Could we touch into the kind of details that illustrate this underlying desire to help others? How exactly do these different, ventures of yours bring help to the community?
So to answer that, there's been kind of a transition approach. I was initially working in the mental health and wellness field, working primarily with homeless and runaway youth for a number of years. And I found that doing therapy work, doing counseling with them was very rewarding, but it was also, for me, being super empathic, it wasn't an exact energetic match for me. So I decided to listen to that. I decided to move into a space of still asking myself the question, how can I fulfill a destiny as a humanitarian and still feel satiated and good at the end of the day? So as opposed to working with people who are in states of extreme, very, very extreme, difficult, extremely difficult social situations, or they're dealing with lots of addiction, lots of these are common things. And there are people who are needed to do this. Like, thank God we have people that love doing that stuff. For me, I decided to transition and work with people who maybe are just looking to experience more joy, that are in a pretty decent space, but they want to experience deeper levels of themselves, experience bliss, experience ecstasy. And something like ecstatic dance, for example, when you engage in ecstatic dance, you're entering into a non-ordinary space. And there is some facilitation that allows you to go there, but it's a non-structured movement practice where essentially through going within going into an internal space, you start to allow the movement of the body to release energy, to feel into deeper spots that you may not even be aware. Something I've been playing with recently, and we might be doing one of these in South Florida pretty soon, is doing a blindfolded ecstatic dance. So in this sense, you're going within, your experience is not on anyone else, because even though people can get into their flow and they're moving and this sort of thing, if you do it blindfolded, that's a whole nother level. Yeah. So in addition to the ecstatic movement, you mentioned the shamanic tonics. So the tonics actually are another way of working to awaken vitality in the body. So I mentioned the mental health and wellness. I kind of moved from the mental to the fundamental. Yeah. So the mental to the fundamental, and really starting to listen to not just the human kingdom, but the plant kingdom, and being inspired by shamanism, being inspired by plant medicines, being inspired and feeling the vibrancy that happens when you start to ingest some really, really powerful herbs, some really powerful superfoods, adaptogenic herbs, which even change what they do based on what your body's needing. These are some really magical, potent things we can be putting in our bodies every day to just feel better, to just feel more vibrant. And we all want that.
Definitely. So I've got quite a bit I'd like to respond to there. First of all, ecstatic dance. I was introduced to it at the ceremony that we shared at Hostel in the Forest. So that was my first time, and
oh wow,
it was really cool. So whenever I began this RV journey, I had a few intentions, that I was looking to manifest, and all of them occurred within the first week. One of them being continuing my own passion of bartering cooking services for other things, and that got me my stay and my attendance to the retreat, the Back to the Roots retreat, for free, in exchange for cooking for everybody, which is something I love doing. And, I've never felt so much gratitude as I did for cooking for 30 plus people.
If I can just say, your cooking is amazing. You made so many amazing dishes during that retreat. So thank you for the amazing food. I appreciate that so much.
I really appreciate your kind words. Thank you. And, it's most definitely a pleasure of mine, which get into later. But one of the manifestations was cooking, bartering cooking services. Another was figuring out something that I could cultivate in the RV, and I found that out within 2 days, and that was tempeh. And another one was attending ecstatic dance, because a month and a half earlier, I had heard about it on an episode of the Tim Ferriss show. And immediately I've been dancing for my own therapy for some time. Realized a few months ago I just need to dance in the morning in the mirror until I have a big smile on my face, and then I start my day,
Nice.
And then this ecstatic dance came up, and it is hands down like the highlight of the 2 months, two and a half months I've been on the road. And not just for unlocking feelings, but even bringing about a profound mental shift in the way I look at change and death, and something that since has inspired a theory that I'm working on and really excited to share with the world. But getting ahead of myself, the ecstatic dance, one thing that I've noticed, I've done it now twice, and I'm actually going again tomorrow here in Denver, is closing my eyes is huge. Unless I am flailing or running around, I keep my eyes closed, unless I'm at risk of hitting somebody, because every time I open my eyes, the ego gets loud, and is like, oh, they're dancing like this, and it starts influencing the way that you move, or thinking, oh, what do I look like right now? But whenever your eyes are closed, it's just you and the music, and that's becomes one thing, right? And yeah, it's at the end of my first experience, I remember standing at the edge of the deck in Hostel of the Forest, and my eyes were closed, and I heard "Life is Good," and it sounded like someone was saying it right behind me, and I realized that was my own internal voice, and I just hadn't been thinking in words for the past hour and a half, and so it sounded like, someone in the physical realm speaking to me, and that was, that's just in line with one of my ongoing goals, is to find as many practices that center you and take you out of your head, so I can more readily achieve that whenever the circumstances aren't right. So ecstatic dance, very awesome. I recommend everybody try it, and it's something that I'm also exploring ideas like, how could I start ecstatic dance in the RV, bring it to different places in nature and have the audio equipment. So
oh wow,
just an idea. Maybe we can partner up.
That's an amazing idea. The traveling ecstatic dance mobile.
Yeah. I do think dance is one of the primary medicines that we all have access to, and
absolutely,
it's something that if we just get loosened up a little bit, enough to get past our ego and do that on a regular basis, we could be so much more accepting of the world and each other. So
yeah, and it's something that is so innate too.
Yeah.
If you look at kids, what are they doing constantly? They're always moving constantly. Yep. So and this is something throughout cultures, throughout traditions. There's something in us that wants to move constantly.
Definitely.
And sometimes it's just because it feels good. And it does actually, this movement, for one, we need to move. And this is maybe part of the remedy for the indoor sedentary type lifestyle that more people are being, led into unconsciously. We need to move to stimulate the lymphatic system, for one. So our blood, our circulatory system, moves on its own. Thankfully, we have this beautiful thing in our chest called the heart. It pumps and oscillates all sorts of fluid naturally. We can just lay down, that thing will do its work 24/7.
Yep.
The lymphatic system, we actually need physical movement to move the lymph around in our bodies. Otherwise, it starts to get stuck in our joints and all this crazy stuff. So that's one thing people don't realize. It's a huge, huge thing. So movement, big, beautiful thing for more and more people to come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of this quote, and I'm not going to get it, but basically it's take guidance from the wise little people around us, referring to children before we have all these refined ways of thinking and are letting our actions speak more freely of our soul and selves, rather than, filtering our expression in order to be accepted.
Yeah. It actually, and kids, another thing, kids move and they express themselves without having to numb their nervous system with alcohol.
Yeah.
Notice this. So most people, one thing I wanted to mention, most people, when they think of dancing, it's at the club and getting trashed on a neurotoxin.
Yeah.
Alcohol is a neurotoxin. So essentially just consuming large amounts of alcohol, and they're moving, but in such a stupor, they're not aware. They're like barely aware of the person right next to them. Yeah. And so one of the things, myself not drinking alcohol, and one of the reasons I created the beverage line was to give people an alternative experience with some of the herbs, and mainly the cacao. So the cacao as a remedy to wanting to imbibe something and move, this allows for that process of movement to become not just conscious, but to become a very unique experience. I'd love to share a little bit about cacao and how that works too. So just to share, Theobroma cacao. So this is raw chocolate. This literally translates, the name for raw chocolate literally means food of the gods. And with such an auspicious name, it's also been utilized for quite a long time. Thousands of years, in fact, by the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Toltecs, the Incas, all the Mesoamerican cultures utilized cacao, raw chocolate, in ceremony. And so this is something that has been done for thousands of years safely and in very, very sacred circles, sacred context, by these cultures. It used to be used, the cacao bean was even used for a while as a currency. And so it's a really, really beautiful, beautiful plant if you start to do some of the research. And then kind of what happened with cacao is it was taken from these places in the 17th century in the South and Central Americas and brought to Europe and turned into a confection. And so people today still love and adore the confectionized version and the watered down, boiled down, additive infused chocolate that they eat today. But when you take cacao back to its raw form, and with what I do, I'm incorporating a number of super herbs like reishi mushroom, mushroom of immortality, also working with some stimulating herbs like maca root. Also, I think most people understand what maca root is. There's other beautiful energizing herbs that I infuse within the cacao, in addition to a very high concentration of cayenne. So one thing that the cayenne will do when it interacts with the cacao is it actually opens up your circulation,
Gotcha.
your circulatory system. And so as a vasodilator, it allows that cacao to just move through you, through the stomach meridian, into the body so much more readily, so much more quickly. And you really start to feel energized. So you feel some energy coming in. You'll feel it, especially those of us who are more energetically sensitive. You'll feel it in your central nervous system. And so you start to want to do something with this energy. And it pairs so well with ecstatic movement. It's amazing. During the hostel in the forest, having the cacao before the dance, it just brings you into another level with that extra energy, with that vibrancy that you start to feel. And cacao, another note, also contains a number of really beautiful compounds like theobromine, anandamide, which ananda means bliss. So it actually contains a scientific compound called anandamide, which is the bliss molecule. Naturally occurring phenethylamine, PEA, known as the love molecule. So there's some really amazing things in raw chocolate. And this is the reason why people will go out and buy a briefcase full of chocolate and eat it all day, because it makes them feel good. So it also is attributed to well-being. This is a really wonderful thing about cacao and why I love it. And all of this synergizing here really gets people into more of an ecstatic state. So sometimes we'll do some breath work. I have one or two beautiful friends that I do some really amazing work with. My brother Eugene Gant, we did a retreat last year in Costa Rica, combining some of these really beautiful Kundalini type practices and breathing techniques, in addition to the cacao, in addition to the super herbs, in addition to the dance. And it's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
Every time. So some really good stuff with cacao, and I'm hoping to expand it. I really want to share this with more people and do this on a larger platform.
Definitely. And so your community in South Florida, a bunch of the people that I met at Hostel in the Forest, all seem very into a lot of the same things, this movement of energy, whether it be through breath work or dance or nutrition. How did you end up finding yourself in that circle?
Well, it's interesting. So I would say it started, I met one of my good friends now for probably, maybe 12 years or so, a friend of mine, Olga. And I met her at an open house for a psych program. This was before my master's. And I met her, and it was a full house of people for this intro to the psych program.
Mm-hmm.
She was seated in the back, and I was standing in the back too. And I just couldn't stop looking at her, not just because she's beautiful, but she was actually radiating light.
Yeah.
I swear to God, she was actually radiating light. And I'm like, what is going on with this girl? Like, I have to ask her what's going on. So I was very intrigued, very curious. I introduced myself and I said, so what are you doing? Like what's going on here? And I had been meditating. I had been kind of in this world of doing some practices on my own, but had yet to find the community. And so we started connecting, and she opened me to a whole world of really what at the time was just kind of a budding yoga community. There were some sanghas, which they would do like Buddhist type chants and practices and meditations. And then through there, it was just meeting person after person after person. And, here we are so many years later, and I'm just carrying the torch. I really do feel that. It's kind of like when you're exposed to the light, you want to share it with more people. And so, it's a recurring return constantly. It's a really, really beautiful thing to share. So I would say Olga really introduced me into the community here a number of years ago. But before that, it was actually in my teenage years, it was really the interest in being very philosophical and more cerebral at that time was really the interest in nothing.
Yeah.
It was actually the concept in nothing, I think, that really got me even into meditation.
Gotcha. Would you define nothing as unattachment or a form of that, or something separate?
Well, at the time, it was so my relationship with nothing is not necessarily just a personal thing. I'm actually looking at the physicality of the universe, and seeing what science says about it. And they say that, a good 95% of this universe is made of dark energy and dark matter.
Yeah.
And so that leaves like such a small percentage of the reality that is physical, that is something tangible. So this was really interesting. So, kind of thinking about the concept of nothing, all of everything rests so intimately in nothing.
Yeah.
So it was just like, it goes on and down the rabbit hole. But I think it was that concept of just being surrounded by nothingness, and realizing that I too am part of that nothingness, and that I still feel today that even though there's so much light and expansion and deep, connection to the heavens above, that's not even a fan. That's my crown chakra there spinning around. There's such a deep connection to divine source, and still I feel at the core of me there is an emptiness that I've been working to commune with, working to dance with and be okay with. So yeah, that is kind of an interesting thing to me. The concept of nothingness is very sacred.
Very cool. So what can you attribute any major shifts in thinking to this discovery and further inquiry of nothingness?
It's almost, I feel that I go there pretty much every time with the meditation technique that I use. So, so many people are familiar with the technique. It's called transcendental meditation. Yeah. So it's a very popular technique. It's been around for several decades. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who was the guru for the Beatles and a number of other Hollywood celebrities, is the founder of this technique. And I remember I was practicing the technique when he was still in his body, and I would tune in and listen, and he would talk about also John Hagelin. He's a really wonderful quantum physicist, and I think he's been on What the Bleep Do We Know and this sort of thing. Some really interesting documentaries. He was pretty much Maharishi's spokesman for a number of years. He may still be. But he would always reference this field, this non-local fields that we're all connected to, and it's with the meditation that we distill the consciousness, which constantly is rising up, and then if we settle back into this field from where the consciousness even came from, we can feel into that all-pervasive expanse of nothing. So it was through the concept of nothing that I started researching actually what consciousness can do via remote viewing. And I was reading another book about remote viewing. Essentially, this technique has been utilized by government agencies and this sort of thing for gathering intelligence, and is still used to this day. Lay people can also utilize and learn this technique as well. But essentially, it's a broadcast of removing consciousness, or projecting consciousness rather, from the immediate space and going into alternate space-time realities to gather information. So it was through learning the initial technique in this one book I was reading to get the consciousness into a remote viewing type state. The practitioner would first engage in transcendental meditation for about 20 to 25 minutes. That was very intriguing. So I learned the TM technique because of nothing, and my consciousness still goes there day to day. Sometimes the mind is, it's still very active. I still have a very active mind, but there's always a return that goes a little deeper, and bringing it back is it just changes the whole day. I mean, even if it's a really surface meditation, even if it's the most deep, profound meditation that I've had all week, it's not an objective type thing.
Yeah.
I'd rather just, be able to go with it and have a deep experience and, feel connected. So
awesome. So are there any other things than transcendental meditation that you use, let's say in times of struggle, to maintain clarity or regain clarity?
Well, there's a number of different books that have helped me. One is called the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook.
Okay.
So this is a really common thing. Just because I've worked in the mental health field does not mean I'm immune to depression or anxiety. These are common things we experience throughout our lifetimes, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Another side project I'm working on to alleviate us collectively from the stigma of labeling people a certain mental this or diagnosis this is another project where people who have been diagnosed, photographing them and having them just tell their story. Either I think the first series will be more success stories to have it more readily available and this sort of thing. But I think the Anxiety and Phobia Workbook has really helped me quite a bit. There's some really powerful reframes and tools and this sort of thing for when life gets challenging. Positive affirmations, big time. Even if when you're in life's, the roller coaster kind of ebbs and flows, and when you get into like one of these deeper grooves, that's a time where you can really do some really good work. It's like you go. It's kind of like the idea of enlightenment is not about seeing beings of light, according to Carl Jung. It's making the dark conscious. So when you're really in the dark, when you're in that, honor that space too. My goodness, please. And when you're there, it's using some positive affirmations, maybe just kind of looking at some pieces of self that I'm like, oh my God, I didn't want to look at that, but now I have no choice because it's, right in my face every day. I think positive affirmations and really getting clear on what is it that you want to shift in your person and being are super, super helpful as well. And continuing the meditation, continuing to show up to yoga, continuing to working out. That's a big one for me. So a huge one. Just having the physical release. Another reason why dance is amazing too. Whether you're initially going in and you're having tears of sorrow and all these things, even sometimes when, I've definitely moved and I start crying and I'm like, oh God, like this is, and then somehow it'll eventually break through. And then I'm feeling the greatness again. And then sometimes not, that's okay too. It's no judgment, no preconceptions here.
Definitely.
But the movement, big, and the working out.
So talking about the stigma of these negative feelings, depression and anxiety, that's something that I'm also very interested in is I'd say it was about a month before I started this RV trip. Some external factors led me to the realization that I didn't really love myself. And I had been basing my self-worth on my past successes as success defined by those around me rather than what I really wanted. And just staying distracted, like living a exciting life, so I never really had to sit with self. And whenever I recognized that, I ended up spending the next month and a half. I moved 30 minutes away from all my friends, and I was on the beach, which was definitely good for this whole process. But I stayed in a place that I wasn't close to the distraction. I didn't have my regular places to go to whenever I was feeling down. I didn't have the people to, go hang out with. And I read this book called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. And it's all about compassionate acceptance, which is rather than treating our emotional ailments like Western medicine does disease, by suppressing, addressing the symptoms, the pain, suppressing that, actually working through the pain and finding that root and then accepting that. And accepting that as part of your human experience, and rather than being, disliking yourself for that, come to love yourself, even with all your flaws and imperfections. And that was pivotal time for my life. And, during that same time, I also came upon this idea from the same Tim Ferriss episode. It was with Aubrey Marcus. And he was talking about it's always our most difficult times in life, those times that we don't think we're going to make it past, that we look back in retrospect with the most gratitude for, because that's where a lot of the growth happens, or it gets us out of that, stagnant position that we just come to accept because it was more comfortable, even though it wasn't fulfilling. And anyway, so his interesting perspective on it is if we can develop enough causal evidence that, yes, we're grateful for these hard times in retrospect, then why don't we look at them in foresight with gratitude? And so I just started doing the simple thing of anytime I felt something hard, I'd say, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. And I'd say within a month, it actually created a mental shift that I respond to quote unquote negative situations with more joy than I do positive situations, which has been a game changer. And, I always have been a little masochistic. I like to learn through experience rather than through others. And that means feeling that pain, because I recognize that's where some of the best developments of my life have been through failure. And, but getting that new perspective has just, I've dealt with some difficult things in this past month, and each one within 24 hours, I am filled with more joy than before it came up, because it's allowing that opportunity and, to focus on the journey rather than these outcomes that we get affixed to, and saying, oh man, look at this development that's taking place right before my eyes. And so, yeah, that's been really big for me. And agreed, also working out and just movement, things that once upon a time I looked at as a source of vanity, like going to the gym to look really good and with no real purpose. Now I can find myself doing all these healthy things because they make me feel good. And that's the leading reason for any of my decisions in life now, is to feel good, and what feels better than working towards a purpose and, just spreading love. All these things can be achieved by simple movement exercises. you know?
Yeah, it's feeling good, and then also making sure that you feel good the next day too.
Yep.
Because a lot of things that people initially, they're like, oh, this feels great, and then they take it and they're like, you know, or they do something and then they're feeling like crap the next day. That's your body's feedback saying,
yep,
maybe not. But if you're doing something that is completely normal and natural and uplifting for the spirit, yeah,
definitely
listen to that. Yeah.
So, back to the idea that a lot of the best lessons in life are the ones that you have to learn over and over again. And what I'm referring to is, I guess, the simple, like, cliches that you hear time and time again growing up. And you just view them as a series of words. And then something kind of clicks and you recognize, like, rather than just knowing it in your head, you embody it with your being. Is there any simple advice or lessons that have served a really profound effect for you?
You know, I would say when you were talking about self-love, I think that's probably one of the big ones for myself too. And in addition to probably everyone on this planet who has been fed the Disney story that love from someone else is what will complete you. Yeah. That's not true. I just, you know, I love Disney. I'm a huge fan. You know, I even have, you know, just to show you, one of my favorites, Guru Mickey. Here he is.
There you go.
He's my guru for real. I actually do have a YouTube series called Guru Speaks. I haven't done one in a while, but what I wear a turban, and there is, you know, this man talking like this, and his guru is Guru Mickey. But yeah, Guru Speaks. It's on YouTube. There are a couple episodes out there. It's a fun thing. But I would say, you know, my love for Disney remains. However, the reality is the love that we're looking for outside of ourselves. If we're constantly half of a circle and looking for that other circle to complete us, we're always going to be half a circle in reality, because we need to really, you know, it's really about the magic union of being whole, feeling that self-love. And then at some point, you know, once you're really there, you know, you're okay being alone. You're okay doing things by yourself. You have just as much joy as doing something, you know, going on a road trip by yourself or doing something by yourself than you would with another person. Yeah. Then I think you've shown yourself, okay, like if I wanted to, if I chose to, you know, you could link up with someone who's in that same vibrational frequency, hopefully. And then you have the basic of pieces kind of thing. Yeah. You know, it's like so it's really an interlocking. It's not necessarily like you complete me. Yeah. And I think that's probably one of the greatest sources of suffering and pain on this planet, based on most pop songs today on the radio, is that it's always about, you know, what, like the other. Yeah. It's like this like sourcing my love and affection from the other. Yeah. You know, I've had some really, really amazing teachers kind of bring to light my time and time again, where am I sourcing my love? And so, you know, this usually comes through intimate relationships primarily. Yeah. Oh, did I lose you?
Nope, you're still there. Okay,
cool. So with that said, I would say really just the quest towards feeling fulfilled. Yep. In my path, feeling good about my practice, and then whether it's just engaging in an exchange like this, yep, or you know, whatever the form is, it's like you're showing up as your full self. Yep. That feels really good, and that does take work. It does take work. Definitely. Because you have to address, you know, all these fears and all these like oh well what if I end up just alone my entire life, or What if I never meet someone? It's like even thinking those things are ridiculous because you're really already fulfilled and whole, and holding that vibration, being in that space, you're going to attract everything and anything or anyone that you need. So it's just like, chill out, just show up for yourself, and the universe responds to energy. So that's how it works. It's a really interesting thing.
One of my shifts recently, after the focusing on love of self first, was rather than looking for someone to share my love with, making a conscious effort to love everybody. Every single person that I'm with at that time, I'm providing them all of me, Nice. And so rather than looking for this like traditional relationship, fulfilling my needs for deeper connection with every possible person that I connect with. And this is not only self-serving, but I mean, one thing I've noticed since I've begun doing this is I don't meet people anymore that I feel, oh man, I'm worse off from this interaction, because once you start projecting love, you bring out the best in the people, around you, even if they may not be following that same path on a regular basis.
Yes. Yeah. So this is an interesting thing. In psychology, they call it mirror neurons, but essentially our behavior affects the other and vice versa. And so when we're showing up in a particular, the spiritualists will say vibration, but if we're behaving a particular way and someone gets the catch or feel of an emotional flow, or like, something deeper that you're tuning into, it kind of like turns on a little switch within them too. And they're like, wait a second. I kind of like what he or she is giving me permission now to experience. So that's a really interesting thing, how just showing up, simplest spiritual practice that anyone could do. Just walk around and smile at people. Just try it. I know you do this too, but it's just like, randomly just like turn to someone and just smile at them. And just see what they do. And then sometimes I surprise myself. They're like, they smile back. I'm like, wow, that was worth my whole day right there.
Definitely.
So it's fun. It's a fun thing to get into.
Awesome. Yeah, I love that. A game that I play is social bumper cars. So walking around in a very public space, and anybody that falls within 5 feet of me, I engage, interact with, communicate with. And the grocery store is the most common place to do this. And that means as long as they remain within that proximity, you continue engaging. And it's just really... it's really easy to think, oh, okay, that person isn't social, because we think we make eye contact with someone else and then break it, look away, but you'll be pleasantly surprised whenever you begin engaging people and bringing out that, social side of them, or whatever it may be. It maybe just be pushing their comfort zone, which is always, I'm a big proponent of. So yes, I love the engaging others. I'm going to wrap up with a few more questions. I wanted to, so obviously there's got to be struggles that we face, right? Whether this be personal or more business related. And let's theme this one for some of your business ventures. Whenever all seems lost, and the fear and doubt is just bearing down on you, how do you take action?
That's something really common, I think, for anyone who considers themselves an entrepreneur. That they're going to face lots of struggles. That they're going to face lots of failure. That they're, it's going to be challenging. It's going to be heartbreaking. It's going to be mentally, physically, emotionally exhausting many days. And during those times, I've definitely, at the initial parts with shamanic tonics specifically, I fell into spaces where it was a lot of self-talk that wasn't really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, oh, what's the point of this? Oh, regardless of whether I'm a good person or a nice person, people are still going to treat me however they want to in some context. And it's not always fair. And, even though I have a very conscious health-oriented, health-positive product, there are some people that they're just all about money. They don't care. They don't. They're like, yeah. Well, how can I make money? And if I can't get my way with you, if I can't, I don't. I'm going to treat you like crap.
Yeah.
I've encountered that. It's really fascinating, and that was kind of a little bit of a innocence lost type experience I've had many times with the shamanic tonic.
Yep.
And, I think what I've learned over time is initially I would feel hurt and I'd just feel like, and then I'd actually do nothing for a while. And so it was like, okay, just kind of go to my safe space, just kind of make the tonics, just, do this and that. And it's kind of been a balancing act between going into the safe space and not growing versus, okay, like, even though I was hurt, how can I still take the next step? How can I still get out there, even though I know I'll probably get, people will try to screw me over again, or people will try to be a little shady again. Regardless, there's still, that's part of being a business owner. That's part of running things, and to really kind of step it up. And, I say that those are like the less glamorous pieces of it, but there's so many positive pieces too.
Yeah.
And those are its own reward. But for the challenging moments, it's really been about adjusting self-talk. It's really just been about taking some time with that self-talk. And the one thing I like to do from time to time, I don't do it every morning, but when I'm feeling it, I'll have a conversation with myself in the mirror. Yeah. As opposed to just letting things go within. That's another beautiful little technique. What's going on? Like, let's talk about this. Yep. And then, when people ask me sometimes, what do I do? I give them kind of like the cute answer of saying, I work for my higher self. Yeah. So in those moments in the mirror, I allow my higher self to come in and talk and have a conversation with my actual self. That's having the trouble or having the struggle or challenge. So that's a really beautiful thing I like to do. And sometimes something will come through, or I'll say something from a higher level of perception that just completely changes my day. Yeah. It's like, it's like you matter. Your feelings matter. You are worthy. Something I said the other week was something like I'm so excited to see you grow and unfold into your highest potential. I was like, that gave me goosebumps. I was like, I wasn't expecting that, but oh wow, yeah, like awesome. So it's beautiful to have that self-reflection and share these things with us, and that just regardless of some of these difficult things, those sorts of things really do elevate and help to bring the vibration up. Of course, making the tonics, that's so therapeutic for me. Yeah. I absolutely love making these products. That's really why I do it. I love sharing them. I love having people tell me great things when they're drinking them. I mean, there's all sorts of, I didn't even go into what the ingredients are about. Maybe we could do that another show, but it's just a really special thing. And that's another thing that really helps, is just getting back into the passion, just feeling the passion start to override the, some of the silliness of other people's agendas, and kind of say, you know what, your agenda's over here. Yep. I'm holding my own. Like I got this.
Definitely.
I have my own field. We're good. Thank you though. Thank you for teaching me what you needed to. And, we can leave it at that and, carry on.
Yep. 1 second, Eric. I'm going to use the restroom real quick because I'm doing a dance.
Yep.
And
little restroom break.
We can wrap up in like 10 minutes if that's cool.
Yep, that's cool. It sounds good. It's the Bathroom Break Intermission Show. Brought to you by Shamanic Tonic. ShamanicTonic.com. Actually, here. I think that's upside down, and reversed, but hey, whatever. It's all good. So I drank this whole thing, everyone. Check it out. I drank it all. So the chlorophyll cocktail. I hope you don't mind, Zach. I'm just going to continue talking. No, I don't mind. You can just continue on. Okay, thanks. So the chlorophyll cocktail, this is so delightful, just in case you didn't know. So this particular beverage is a fusion of spring water, coconut water. We also have it was very green. So there's a lot of greens in here. We're working with liquid chlorophyll, barley grass, wheatgrass, alfalfa, moringa, locally sourced moringa. Super cool. Goji berry, schizandra, lucuma, noni fruit from Hawaii, a little bit of pink salt, and some monk fruit. Yummy, yummy. I was just telling everyone what was in the chlorophyll cocktail just before while in the meantime.
That is great. I was planning on editing it out, but now I'll just keep it in as one solid take.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, so you struck
see if it works. See if it works.
Yeah, you just struck on something key, especially for my purpose of this podcast, and that was the passion that goes into the production of your product, and not only that, but like the sharing it with others, and that's that's it, right? That's doing it right.
Huge.
Is finding that thing that.
Yeah, it's huge. It's huge. It's interesting. Kind of at the start of the show, I kind of mentioned this Renaissance approach, and I would say I have multiple passions. Honestly, I mean, I love the tonics, but I also have been a professional photographer for about 8-9 years now. I do a lot of really fun projects in Photoshop. So I've been working in Photoshop for a number of years, took some college level courses, even really have a really fun understanding of how to create as a lefty, being in my right brain most of my waking state. I see things in a very creative kind of mode. So I like to sometimes get into the digital space, do some creation. Oh, it's so fun. So that's another beautiful passion of mine. Just even connecting here. I mean, I feel passionate about just sharing, just expressing, being in a really healthy space within. I feel great sharing with that. I feel very passionate about sharing, about opening to speaking. Very comfortable with that. And but yeah, it regardless of what the form looks like, if you can connect with something and feel passion and feel like this vibrancy, this vitality, it's like, what is passion? It's like so it affirms life. It almost makes you feel like you're reversing your aging process. It's like whatever that is, whatever turns you on in that way, that should be what you do with your life.
Definitely.
I mean, somehow infusing passion, making it sustainable. That's a beautiful thing too. If you can have passion that is sustainable and working and creating and developing in a way that's sustainable, that's the way to go.
I think that's a good reason, if any, for taking more of a Renaissance approach. Me, historically speaking, have been all or nothing about what I'm into, and so I stumble upon a new hobby, and that's what I'm doing tens of hours a week for usually about 3 months until I've exhausted it. I've reached that plateau that it now takes a lot of work for a little bit of gain, and I become bored and I step away, and so finding, not relying on one thing for all of your fulfillment, and diversifying and maybe finding things that align skill sets. So conditioning of any one skill can affect multiple areas of passion. But that's, one of the things for me, I never liked working out until I started rock climbing. And then I enjoyed working out to further my own ability, right? And so that's kind of the same way I approach anything work related. Is first of all, I ask myself, if in a year from now I haven't made any money on this, will I be a better person from it? Will I have enjoyed the journey, and will I consider going onward with it? And if I can't answer yes to those three things, then I don't ever start that venture. And what this allows is I don't think there's any way around. I guess there probably is if you strategize right, but any way around only doing things that you absolutely love for any cause, right? There's going to be stuff that you don't care for as much. For instance, doing this podcast, one of the things that slowed me down is reviewing the software or, designing the website. These are all things that I don't really enjoy the time that goes into it. But it's that conditioning, just like going to the gym in order to further my rock climbing, right. Being able to put time in on these things because it's fulfilling a bigger purpose and meeting it, which is aligned with my passion. So I have a fulfilling journey along the way that may have, it's bland moments, but it's not ultimately a bland experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of groundwork that was involved in creating heaven, for example. Everyone gets there and they're like, oh, it's so glorious here. But, the underpinnings of all of that was, monumental strife and struggle and all sorts of craziness just to build something. It's the stuff on the back end, most people don't even see. When they just see what's on the front end. So there is a lot of work that's involved in making your passion come to life. It does require some commitment. That's a big thing. It does require showing up. It does require doing the less glamorous things, at least initially. If if you're working with limited resources and can't yet have someone else do it for you, or for whatever reason. So a lot of it, I think, keeps us honest too. I can speak from experience because, it's still, there's still parts of, the passions that I feel can be a grind, or there's some work involved that, it's like less than great, but I'm just keeping in mind, why am I doing this? It's because there's such a larger vision. There's such a larger scope that is possible. And it's, every little step builds into the explosion and possibility of a new, that reality coming to life. So
beautiful.
I feel you on that for sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I wanted to end this conversation on, your introduction to kind of the community of higher consciousness was very profound, in that you saw, this light radiating from this person, and, had a great guide into it. For those who may not experience such a profound introduction, where would you recommend one seek out surrounding themselves with people that are going to help them unlock a more authentic self, identify their their true passions and, you know, really start working towards living the life of their dream?
I mean, thankfully, we live in a world where it's virtually, at least, you can reach out and connect with pretty much anyone.
Yep.
You know, someone in Lithuania or Morocco is as close as your next door neighbor. So it's really, I think, just utilizing the resources that we have, kind of giving ourselves a little bit of a structure and a little bit of guidance, and just saying, okay, I have an app on my phone that says YouTube. I'm going to Google in a search term meditation, or there's even a number of apps. Really, I use several apps on my phone, for meditation purposes.
What's your favorite? What is a favorite?
Well, my favorite, I have two, which are for different purposes. One is a sound generator, which I use in meditations for guided meditations for different rituals and ceremonies. I'll even throw some of this on. It's called My Noise. Yeah, My Noise. Check it out. Really, whoops, there we go. Yeah, really, really amazing app. Just puts you into a whole soundscape. They have binaural beats on there. Yeah. All sorts of beautiful things. The other is, I think it's called Insight Timer. Yeah. So that's just a really simple timer. I like to just make sure that I have that timer on. It'll work with your phone in airplane mode, so you don't have to worry about interruptions, that sort of thing. So so those two combined, that's how I utilize those for my meditations. And there are a number of others, but yeah, I'd say just getting into a space of the reason meditation is even important, just so you can get some clarity and insight on what is it that you're passionate about, what is it that you're really wanting to bring to the table. Are there some shifts and changes in your behavior or circumstances, whether it's career or finances, relationship, living space, health, wellness, all these different facets of our life that might need some shifts. And to answer those questions truly, it's really going back to that philosophical concept of know thyself. Yeah. And that's what the meditation for me has helped a great deal in gaining some clarity. And it's mainly through a lot of questioning and self-inquiry. So journaling, I think, just kind of once you know yourself, honestly, Zach, I don't think there's a lot of other people that you have to be reaching out to, because the reality is, I'm going to let everyone know a little secret here, but we're actually all the same person. Yeah. If you know yourself, if you really know yourself, you know everyone. Yeah. And then there's no more hiding. There's no more like, oh, well, you're over here and this and that. It's like, no, like, we're all the same. We all have the same emotions. We all understand basically the same energetic language. Yeah. So, it's kind of like just going within, really. That's the first and foremost person I'd recommend people connect with. Yeah. And then from there, I think there will be, if you are looking for something in your environment, if you wanted some social ability too, just using, if you have this app called Facebook, you can also go on there, and you can also go on there and connect with people in your community. Yeah. Who just maybe check out ecstatic dance. Put that in wherever you live. Just try putting in ecstatic dance. See what happens. Yeah. Go check out an ecstatic dance. Maybe go to some sort of energy meditation, and you'll kind of see, like, through the different events, the yoga, all these different things, you'll see what works for you and what doesn't. What might work for me might not work for someone else, but it's like, that's how you find out, is through experimenting, through giving yourself permission to be open to experiencing new things, and you might surprise yourself,
Definitely. So, all right. Well, Erik, again, thank you very much. This has been a great conversation, and back on the fulfilling our own passions. I've loved every single second of this. So this is not a day of work for me. This is, doing what I love, and I can see the same for you. So I'm glad that we could connect on this. If there's anything that you would like to say to the audience before we go, you're welcome to.
Yeah. If folks do have Instagram, they can connect with Shamanic Tonic. It's really simple. It's SHAMANIC TONIC. That's the beverage Instagram. If anyone, I mentioned the photography. If anyone's interested, it's on Instagram as well. Now It's Forever. So when you take a photo, now it's forever.
All right.
So that's also nowitsforever.com. And I'd also like to thank my guru, Guru Mickey, for guiding us and showing us the way. Lord Mickey, we appreciate you for all eternity. Yes. So,
all right. Well, I'm sending my love, brother, and I look forward to connecting, in the physical realm again soon.
Yes.
And keep on furthering that humanitarian cause and spreading the light.
And so it is.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Stay tuned, and next week we'll have another episode out for you. All right. Bye.